Alrighty, so we have officially now started Pitch Fest for February, and I'm so happy to have each of you here. I love this event because it's so fun. This helps me get to know each of you a little bit better, people in my community, people who I know through other communities, and it's also just time for us to practice our pitch and talk about what we like to talk about and what type of podcast we're looking for, because you never know who might be a great connector for you with somebody else. So I will go first so everybody gets a sense of how we are doing this. And I am going to mute everybody else really quick. Yep. And so again, this is just me as an example of how I might pitch myself. I sometimes pitch myself differently depending on what I am talking about or what type of shows I'm looking for at the moment. But this will at least give you a slight example. And I realized I have laundry running in the background, so I sure hope that doesn't mess up my. It is so funny because I always tell people, I have people ask me about how to have a good place to be a guest and what should my environment be. And I always say, well, my laundry room's right behind me. So I always make sure I don't start laundry. And then I started laundry like a half an hour ago. Luckily, in editing, we can clean up that kind of stuff. Alrighty. Oops. Hi, everyone. I am Julie Marty-Pearson. I am a podcaster, speaker, coach, and advocate. I help women own their voice, share their story, and grow their visibility through podcasting. I help them become awesome podcast guests, start their own shows, or grow existing ones because there still are not enough women in podcasting. We are the minority significantly, both as hosts and guests. And my goal is to help more women, especially women entrepreneurs, business owners, speakers, and advocates to get access to more guesting opportunities. I have three podcasts that are all for different reasons, but are a part of my passion of advocating for women and also animals. My first is The Story of My Pet, where I advocate and educate for animal rescue, fostering, and adoption. The second is Podcast Your Story, where I share my journey as a podcaster, interview other amazing women podcasters, and share tips and tricks for being a great guest or starting your own podcast. My third podcast I just started is called Still Becoming Women Unmuted, and that is going to be a platform for women to share their stories, but also to support each other, to educate other women around big topics like women's health, mental health, and women's rights that we all need to collectively come together for. As a coach, I help individuals and groups really think about how podcasting can best be used for them and their business, and whether that be as guests or as hosts or by starting their own show. I really help people understand what is right for them, their availability, their time, and their business. And so I love being a guest and talking about how I came into podcasting, how I use it for my business, as well as how I use it to advocate, like my pet podcast. I also talk about really quick tips that are very actionable for your listeners, where they can learn how to find the right podcast to guest on, how to be a good guest once the episode is live, as well as how to launch and grow their podcast. I hope that you will reach out to me if you think I'm a good fit for your podcast, and I would love to talk to your listeners and share my expertise and my story with them. Alrighty, I just realized I didn't set the timer. Oh well. So that is an example. It is not perfect. I kind of went all over the place in my mind. Well, I guess I can't do the timer because it's not even letting me open it. Sorry, guys. My internet has been glitchy today, so that could be why. Okay, so before we go to our next pitch, any questions, anything about what I said, what I didn't say, anything that you want to ask?
I have a question, and I'm going to be very honest with you and everybody on here. I did not put anything together, and I did that on purpose because I want to see how do I do if I just kind of flow and share what it is that I do more in the moment.
Right.
Oh, is there a but because you're the professional? Is there a standard you should say this, you should say this, you should say this. Like the top 4 or 5 things you should always say in a pitch.
That's a great question. And I just kind of went off the fly. I didn't have notes or anything in front of me. Yes, I've done this a few times, but, we're not always pitching like this. Sometimes it's talking to someone we meet virtually or in person, but sometimes it's written. And so there are things that I always would say. Obviously, these are general pitches. I'm not speaking to a specific host or podcast right now, but most of the time when we're pitching, we are directing it to someone, right? Maybe we're sending them a message or we're talking to them directly about, oh, your podcast, I think I would be a good guest for. So, one of the things I always say, especially in writing or if you are talking to someone specific, you want to mention their podcast. You want to say you have listened to it and you should have listened to it. And you want to give an example of a recent episode or topic that you heard on their podcast that you liked and why you liked it. So that is one thing I always tell people to do in pitches. Obviously, we can't do that in this format because it's a general pitch, but I did want to mention that because if you are sending an email or a DM or something to someone to specifically ask to be on their podcast, make sure you start it by not pitching yourself, but by telling them how much you love their podcast and why you love it and what you got out of listening to it or something. So that is definitely something everyone should always say. Now, in terms of general pitches, obviously you want to introduce yourself. If you have a title, like I do podcaster, speaker, coach, sometimes I use other verbiage like call myself a podcasting mentor. I also sometimes call myself a visibility coach. So think about your title. How do you introduce yourself? Hi, I'm Cindy Sharp and I'm a coach, or whatever that is. So that's always a good place to start. And it's also good to give a little bit of what you do if it is related to your business specifically, and that's what you're going to be talking about. Like I have my kind of tagline where I say I help women own their voice, share their story, and grow their visibility through podcasting. So it's good to have maybe a sentence or two after you introduce yourself, your title, about what you do. You can say it however you want to. I help women do this. I help businesses do that. I help people grow in this way, whatever that is. So those are the good places to start. And then from there, it depends on what you speak about, guest about. I always tell people to share a couple topics or things you would love to talk about or like to talk about, but don't share too many. So, what I tried to do was keep it to how to be a guest, how to launch a show, how to grow a show. Now, I could say 10 things under each one of those, but those are the things I kind of tried to include. So, what are your two main topics that you like to speak on, teach about, do workshops on, help your clients with? Think about those 2 to 3 things that would be your main topics of what I can talk about on someone's podcast. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you.
And then the last thing, which is what I did, but I didn't do well because I was not prepared in any way. I wasn't thinking ahead, is to always say what their listeners will get out of your episode. So that is one of the ways that people often miss making themselves stand out as a guest. Yeah, I said, I can help you be a great guest. I can help you start a show, but I didn't give any tangible, like, what is that? So let's say I was pitching to someone to be on their show to talk about guesting and how I help people become good guests. I would say, I'm going to tell you, I'm going to help your listeners figure out the right way to search for podcasts and how to find podcasts that are the right fit for them and their business. And then how to pitch themselves. What are the top 4 things you should include in every pitch? I also have a checklist that your listeners can download that they can go through it in terms of setting themselves up for success as a podcast guest. So something like that that's tangible. We want to talk to them that your listeners will get this from me, but we also want to share something that's different than everybody else that talks about it, right? There's plenty of guests out there who can talk about how to be a podcast guest. What are the specific things I help people with that the listeners will get from hearing me on the podcast? So that is kind of the last thing, is the specific tips, items, actions that they will be able to take after hearing you on the podcast episode. Does that make sense to everybody?
Yes. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
That was a mouthful. I was trying to take notes and I went, okay, I don't think I got all the notes, but that's okay.
It's okay. You'll get the recording, and I always put the recordings up on my YouTube channel so you can watch it and go back through it and make notes too.
Perfect. Thank you.
Sometimes it is we want to hear it, but sometimes we have to take the notes and, think about it again.
Sure.
Okay. Any other questions or anything before you guys do your pitches? And again, this is not perfection. This is practice. And it's okay if you flub up. If you say, oh, I want to say that again or start over, totally fine. I edit these, so I will always edit those things out and give you the cleanest version of your pitch. Or if you realize you want to try it again later, that's fine too. So I just always want people to realize there's no perfection. This is just practice. Anyone want to volunteer to go next? Bernadette, go ahead. Oh, oops, she just lost her video and you are muted. Let me let me see if ask you to, you might be able to find the button easier.
Got it.
There you go. Oh,
So,
okay. I'm gonna start your time and then go ahead and go whenever you're ready.
Okay. Can you see me?
Yes.
Okay. I help everyday people who look fine on the outside, but feel worn out, discouraged, disconnected on the inside. I help them rediscover happiness through gratitude, self love, and simple science backed practices that actually stick. So my story is I was 25 years old and my life had completely unraveled. I was on welfare. I had little
Bernadette, I'm so sorry to interrupt you, but the way you're holding your phone, your thumb is covering your face for the last little bit.
Should I start totally over?
Yeah, I'll have you start over.
But I have a long thumb, it seems like it always gets in the picture.
Okay, well, right now, however you have it, you're good. There's nothing covering your face.
Okay.
Okay, go ahead.
I help everyday people who look fine on the outside but feel worn out or discouraged, disconnected on the inside. I help them rediscover happiness through gratitude, self love, and simple science backed practices that actually stick. My story is I was 25 years old. I was on welfare with a 6 year old. I had tried to get my very first job. Um, I got fired, totaled out my car all in one day, and it was bad. I was living in a basement with no windows, and I had reached a point where I had planned on ending my life. So I got drunk, got up the courage. I was trying to get the courage to overdose. Turn on the TV. This is 1983, and the evening news was showing Ethiopia famine. This was the one where Michael Jackson, Quincy Jones, Lionel Richie, we are the world, we are the children. They raised all this money to send to these famine victims. And I'm getting drunk, I'm sitting there, and I'm like, these people, their rib cages, their arms are like this big, and the news reporter stands up in front of all these thousands and thousands of dying people. And I'll never forget what he said. He said, half of these people will be dead by morning. They have no blankets. I'm like, what? Put down my drink. They're going to be dead. They have no blankets. I counted one, two blankets on my bed, one, two blankets on my son's bed, and I owned a throw blanket. That moment cracked something inside of me. A bright light came in that windowless room, and I was transformed. I didn't magically get my shit together, but I learned how gratitude could disrupt despair. I had fresh, clean running water, flush toilets, wall to wall carpeting, and a 6-year-old who loved me. Over time, I combined that awakening with what neuroscience, positive psychology. This is a whole new field that started in the 1990s, talking about,
Bernadette, you just hit your 3 minutes.
oh, okay.
So, and you can go again after everyone else goes if you'd like. And what I might have you try the next time is talk more about what you do without telling the whole story, because that story is great, but you want to save it to tell it on the podcast. You don't want to give all those details of the transformation you went through. You want to say how little pieces of like you had an awakening and then I learned this and then I got that, because that whole story is great, but that would be a great part of your interview with someone to talk about how that happened in your life. Does that
How
make
do
sense?
I attract them to be interested in me to interview? That was my only concern, is that that story would attract the interviewer.
Right, but one of the things is we don't want to give it all away in a pitch. We want to give them a little bit. You can say, I have a really inspiring story about what made me wake up and choose not to end my life or choose to better or choose to help people. Like you can give pieces of it without you told it in such a descriptive way with all these little things that make people want to listen. But if you do that in your pitch, they're going to be like, "Great, what else can you talk about on the podcast?" Does that make sense?
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Let's go and then we'll come back to you again, Bernadette. I'll go ahead and mute you. All right. Cindy, Connie, who wants to go next?
Okay. Oh, go ahead, Connie.
You're already unmuted, Cindy. We'll go with you.
Okay, wonderful.
And Connie has a visitor. We always love it when
Connie
our
has her
pets join
kitty.
us. Okay, Cindy, go ahead.
Hi, everybody. I am Coach Cindy Sharp. I teach women how to, I don't remember. Okay, I'm going to start over. Hold on. Hi. Hi, everybody. I'm Coach Cindy Sharp. Sorry, let me get my giggle going. Hi, everybody. I'm Coach Cindy Sharp. I teach women how to stop hiding so they can create a life of more purpose and find their prosperity. One of the things that is really unique about me, this is not what I want to say. So I'm going to start again. I have a whole 3 minutes, so I'm going to make it through this. Don't worry. Hi, I am Coach Cindy Sharp. I teach women how to stop hiding so they can find their purpose and create more prosperity in their lives. Some of the things that are unique about me and that I've heard others have really liked about having me on their podcast is I bring a uniqueness to the podcast, and that is my story. I was born with a rare birth defect, and that rare birth defect kept me hiding my own light for many years. And so, what I do is I help women get out of the closet and come into where they're supposed to be in their lives, especially women in the midlife. I'm an author, I'm a speaker, and I am a laughter yoga leader. And I bring a genuine, fun, upbeat, but a serious conversation about why today more women leaders are needed, because today, the world is calling for love and compassion. But if they're still hiding in the closet, not creating that love and compassion here on this earth. Thank you.
Good job. How did that feel?
Um, well, again, I didn't prepare anything. I said that I was just going to wing it. So
Yeah.
what I learned about not preparing anything is if I'm going to wing it, I better at least have my first two sentences completely down. What I would like to do is maybe follow your example of the kind of four things you need to have and then
Hmm.
have it very clear. But once I started, I felt a little bit better. But I
Right.
do I want to be able to say it and it be like, "Ow, I want her on my podcast." And there wasn't that energy in me, and so I'm not sure that that was coming across because
No,
I
I
was
think
more thinking about what I have to say.
right. And sometimes we get in our head too much and then it doesn't come out the way we want it to. I do the same thing. So two things I would say you did after kind of starting and restarting a couple of times, you really did a good job of explaining who you are and how you help women and how like you use some, I can't think of the words now, but you use some really great keywords like, light, and there were words that stuck out to me. So I think the
Okay,
pieces are there. It's just, and it is practiced, and also we also have to give ourselves a break. We're not always ready to be on and be inspiring, right? Sometimes we're just getting through the day. So no one's perfect. And it will get easier as you practice, kind of like what is that intro you want to use whenever you're introducing yourself. Think about it, even, at polka dot meetings. If people don't know you, what would those first two sentences be? Because that would be the same thing, whether you're talking to someone about, them being a potential client or you being on a podcast. You can kind of get that verbiage kind of set in your head. It's something I've had to work on myself. And then the other thing is you don't have to prepare or practice. But one thing that helps me is having a paper or even a sticky that just has like bullet points on it, like who I am, what I do, and then I can help your listeners, or the three things you want to make sure you say that you can help the listeners will get from you, right? You don't have to have it all written out, but you can at least have maybe bullet points. Sometimes that helps me because sometimes I get lost in my thoughts. I can look down at them and be like, right, I want to say that and I want to go there. I want to make sure I hit that. So that might be a way that would help you too. It doesn't have to be fully prepared every word you're saying, but sometimes just some main words or topics might help you, include everything you want to when you're pitching.
well, perfect. Thank you very much. May I ask you one question as a person that books people for your own podcast?
Yes.
One thing that I want to get across is what it is that I do, but I want to get across that I'm not the average person you're going to interview
Hmm.
about leadership in women, that I come with my own unique story of being born with this birth defect. Um,
And I do
just
think
as,
you did that in a good way, the way you
okay,
said it. And I also love the wording you used where you said, I've been told that what makes me unique as a guest, like that's a great way to say it. It to say
okay,
I've been told I'm a great interviewer or I'm a great guest or I'm a great speaker because or I have a story that is unique because I was born with a birth defect, and you did include that, and I do think that that hit as a very unique thing that I have never heard any other guest say. So I think it is important for you to say it in some way, and the way you said it this time, it caught my attention. But I also did like the way you said, I've been told I'm a great guest because that one shows you've done it before, and two, you've gotten positive feedback. So I think that was a really great way to say it, especially early on, but then also tied into your story, a birth defect, but not going into the full story, just saying you have a story to tell because of that uniqueness.
thank you.
Yeah.
Perfect. Great feedback. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Okay, so we'll go to Connie next. And then if you guys want to do it again, you are welcome to do so. And I can send you both versions so you can watch them and, critique yourself. Sometimes it's hard to listen to ourselves, but I can tell you as a podcaster, I've gotten much more comfortable with it. But then I also pick out the things I'm like, don't say that. Don't say that. I'm someone who likes to say so a lot. And so I try to work on it. But anyway, Connie, are you ready? Okay, let me mute myself and I'll start the timer.
My name is Connie Borden. I live in Colorado. My background is I'm an acupuncturist. I'm a yoga nut. I teach yoga, mindfulness, and one day I was going to do some self-care time and take my paddleboard out. And so I was driving and I stopped at behind somebody at a red light. It turned green. Nothing happened. She didn't move. And I acted like an idiot. And I felt so bad. And I remember thinking, oh my goodness, Connie, this is not the person you want to be, this maniac on the road. And so I took what I teach off the mat and onto the road. And so I wrote a book about my journey. I don't know if you can see it. It's called Speeding to Compassion. Oh, you can't because I have a background. It's called Speeding to Compassion, Life Lessons and Humor to the High Road. So I thought it was going to be called How to Be a More Mindful, Kindful Person or a driver, which does make us a more mindful, kindful person in the long run. And so I share that story. And one of the things that guests get from when I talk about this topic is they can relax into being imperfect, for one. There's a lot of people out there that are really beautiful human beings, but you get them on the road and it's another story. Another thing that you'll get is humor. I definitely bring in a lot of humor. And the other thing is you really get some practical mindfulness techniques that help with the stories that we make up in our minds when we don't really have a lot of information. And so it's like, oh, that person's an idiot. That's a selfish person. We don't know. And we do this all the time. Brene Brown talks about that, who I love. So that's my pitch.
Great. Thank you. I love that. I loved there was something new you said that I haven't heard you say before, and now I can't, of course, remember it. Um, but I like the way you shared your story about the driving without going fully into it, but giving an idea of how that was a transformation for you and how you like to share that and how you use what you do every day to kind of become a better, not only a better driver, a better person. So I like the way that you did that.
Thanks, thanks. And I just wanted to share that I'm going to work with Julie to start my own podcast. And and the reason why I want to share it because maybe you'll be guests on it. And it's going to be something like taking the high road
Mm.
and the courage it can sometimes take to do things that the road less traveled. And so I'm already looking for people to guest on it. So yeah.
Yeah, once you're ready, we'll add you to the list and we'll let Cindy and Bernadette know so they can apply to be on it. Yeah, I think they both probably have great stories for that. You know,
Mm-hmm.
this idea of choosing the high road or realizing you've fallen off the road that you should be on, whatever that is. I'm sure you're going to find
Yeah.
lots of women with stories that can tap into that in some way for sure. Okay. So, do you now that you've heard each other, and I will give if any of you want to do it again, I will give you time to do that. Are there any other questions or comments you want to make before we go through those again?
Julie, I would like to make a comment to Connie and is it Bernice? You can't see your name, Bernice, in your
That
Bernadette.
Bernadette. Okay. I have some suggestions. Do you mind if I do that? I don't want to step over any boundaries, but
It's totally fine with me. It's up to Connie and Bernadette. They can say if they're okay with feedback. Yep. Okay, go ahead.
okay. My feedback is a little bit different than what you say. Julie is the expert on that, but uh, I have some suggestions on how you look on camera.
Mm.
And so I'm going to start with you, Connie. Connie, you are sitting where the light is super bright behind you, which makes your face dark, and you should be sitting the
I'm just going to
opposite.
stop you right there. I'm just going to stop you right there.
Oh,
We are doing our basement is as jackhammered. There's a water thing, and I usually go into a place where the light is here and it's not back there, but I'm just stuck here. I don't like this. So I'm just going to say it's normally
okay.
not. So
It's
I already know. just so
No
you know.
problem.
Yeah.
It's just a suggestion, but then there's one other suggestion.
Okay.
You have a beautiful, calm, loving voice, but there's something where it doesn't come across really well. Like maybe you need a little bit of a better mic, because I was kind of like, like trying to hear you sometimes. So I would just suggest that you get a little bit of a better mic. So there's a suggestion for you. And then this is for both of you, and that is it's really important, if you're, I'm just saying, if you're going to pitch anything to anybody anywhere, is that the very first thing before any word comes out of your mouth is people look at you. This has nothing to do with how you look as a person. This just has to do with how your kind of setup is. It's important that your camera is either straight on your face or just a little bit above and not coming from below. So I'm just going to suggest, and that would be my suggestion for everybody. And that's it. I hope you guys are, this is all with love, just sending a little love to everybody.
We all appreciate that. And I will say that I know what you mean with Connie, and it could either be her mic or her internet. Sometimes the internet causes this too, where it's like you hear the word, but you miss the ending. So it's like not fully being pronounced. So,
Right.
Connie, it could just be your mic, it could be your environment, it could be your internet. Sometimes when I record with the internet and it's lagging, it drives me crazy because it's like I can't hear everything's being said, or I realized later my words weren't fully coming through. So I think the big thing here is when we are officially on a show, we are guesting or we're doing, a more polished pitch, that those are definitely things. It's always good to record yourself and play it back and listen to it and look at it to see what that version of it looks like. Okay. Did you anything else? Anybody else want to share any feedback to each other? Anything else you heard or thought of as we were all speaking that you think they might? Yeah, Bernadette, go ahead.
So I want to thank Cindy for reminding. First off, I just got out of the hospital, so I don't look that good. But my brother always says I hold the phone down here and go like this. He says no one wants to see your nose hairs. Hold the phone up. So that's a good reminder. Thank you, Cindy. And
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 Con,
it's
can I
also
make
good to
another, can I
oh,
make another suggestion? And that is you shouldn't be holding your phone. And the reason is it's because it's moving. So you should have a little stand to put it on. And I'm sorry. I hope you're back on the mend.
thank you. Good idea for the phone thing. I'll do that when I make sure when I am interviewed, I'll have it on a stand. Yeah, I shake. And I
and
want
I will say, Bernadette, most people are going to want you on a computer because phone, video, and audio quality is not good as a guest. So I don't know if you have access to anything like that. Even a tablet might be better than a phone.
I have an iPad.
Yeah, that would be better
Uh,
because it's going to give them a full video screen versus your tiny phone. And tablets tend to have better mics too because the phone is capturing the sound all around you. It's not just capturing your voice. So sometimes that brings in outside noise. So I would definitely try your iPad and maybe do like your own recording by yourself to see if that works better because it will give a better picture to you also.
Thank you. And
And
I want to thank Connie because I thought you did a fantastic job in your pitch. It was just so concise. Julie explained to me not to be all detailed about my story. Connie gave the why you should interview me, and I loved it.
And Connie has been guesting. I think she's refining her pitch as she guests. And I don't
You.
know, but she also went to Podfest, so she may have gotten some great tips there also.
Yeah. And one of them is to have a good mic. Like the one thing that you want to spend good
Yep.
money on is that you can hear clearly.
Yeah. And I will say that's something I talk about with guesting and hosting. And one of the reasons is, like I just said to Bernadette, if you are using a laptop, a computer, an iPad, whatever, and you use the mic that's built in, those mics are built to just pull sound from whatever's around them. It's not built for just your voice as much. And so having an external mic that's just for your voice makes a big difference in how you show up as a guest. But it also makes the editing easier for the host because the sound is clearer to begin with. So it's easier for us to remove outside noise if we needed to. And you don't have to spend a lot. There are several great mics under 40 that are good quality, that are built for speaking, that you can just plug into a computer. And I even have an adapter that I could plug this into my phone or my iPad. So it goes into the phone and then it goes into the adapter. So this is just a USB mic. This cord is just, I plug it right into my laptop to use it. But those types of mics can also be plugged into tablets and phones. So that is something to think about if you want to upgrade that. So yeah, the mic is very important. And honestly, it's the most important because podcasts are audio. So your mic is important. Now, I would say the next thing is video because video is kind of overtaking podcasting, and YouTube is now the number one place where people watch or listen to podcasts, which means more and more podcasts are going to video, not necessarily only video, but they're also using the video. And that's also something you should ask when someone wants you to be on their podcast or you book it. There is no reason for you not to say to them, "Great, I'm so excited. Can you answer a few questions? Are you recording the video? Is this recorded or is this live?" So that you know how to best show up. You know, if they tell you, "Oh, I record the video, but I never use it," okay, you're not as worried about it. But they say, "Yeah, I use the video and the audio." You want to ask those questions as a guest because that's going to help you be a better guest for them. And not all of us are great hosts. We don't always check on those things with our guests, right? It is something I do more because I have had a couple people show up either on a phone. Somebody thought it was a good idea to sit in their backyard to do an interview and there was traffic driving by. So, you know, there are little things that we can do as a guest to show up more professionally, but sometimes we just have to ask, right? I don't always say I use both. When I start an interview, I always say that. But it's important for me to have that in my email I'm sending to the guest. Reminder, we record tomorrow. I record video and audio. I do edit. So, you know, I can take things out. But I've even as a guest shown up and not realized, oh, this is live stream. There's no editing. So I got to think, you know, you want to prepare yourself the best way. And sometimes we have to ask if we're not specifically told by the host themselves.
Can I re-record?
Mm-hmm. Okay. Let me get the timer back up. We'll let Bernadette go. And then Cindy and Connie, if you want to do another take, you are welcome to do so. Okay, I'm going to mute myself. Okay, Bernadette, go ahead.
My name is Bernadette Almeida. I am known as the happiness maker. I'm a motivational speaker and a author. I help everyday people who look fine on the outside but feel worn out, discouraged, or disconnected on the inside. I help them rediscover happiness through gratitude, self-love, and simple science-backed practices that actually stick. My work comes from a live experience. When I was 25, my life completely unraveled. I lost my job, I wrecked my car, all in one day, and I was living in a basement on welfare. I had a 6-year-old son, and I had reached a point where I planned to end my life. So that night, after losing my job and wrecking my car, I got drunk and I tried to gather the courage to overdose on pills. They were showing on the TV news the Great Ethiopian Famine of 1983. The victims were so thin and distraught, millions of people there, and the cameras focused in on this valley of skeleton bodies. And the news reporter said half these people will be dead by morning. They have no blankets. And I was like, what? I looked around and realized I owned 5 blankets. That moment cracked something open in me. I didn't magically become happy, but I learned about how gratitude could interrupt despair. Over time, I combined that with awakening in what neuroscience and positive psychology now confirm. Gratitude, kindness, and self compassion can literally rewire the brain. That became the foundation of my happiness maker work and my book, Count Your Blankets: The Science of Happiness and the Art of Loving Yourself.
Great, Bernadette. That was great. How did that feel trying it again?
More concise. I hope it still attracts the interviewers, yeah, I hope.
Well, I do like that you started it with introducing yourself and who you are. So I think that was definitely an improvement. I think you gave a little more context to what you do and how you help people. So that was good as well, I think. Anybody else want to share any feedback?
I would just want to share that one of the feedbacks that you gave last time, Julie, was don't tell your whole story. And you still really dug deep into that story instead of just highlighting it at a time in my life. I, a time in my life where I wasn't sure I still wanted to be here. I had this awakening,
Hmm.
which I'll share on your podcast, but I wouldn't share the whole story. That would be my only suggestion.
You agree with that, Connie?
Yeah, I think Bernadette, you introduced the story slightly different this time, which was good, where you talked about in one day you lost your job and got in a car wreck and you were considering ending your life. I think that's enough. You don't have to talk about Ethiopia or the blankets or any of that because that's the story you want to tell. You're just saying, I was at this low point and I found a way to get past it, and now I get to help other people do the same thing. Does that
Yeah,
make sense?
but the blankets is the reason why the story is so empowering.
Yeah, but what from my perspective as a host, if I hear you say, in one day I lost my job, I wrecked my car, I was living in a basement on welfare, I was thinking about ending my life, that is the pitch.
Wow.
I don't need to know what changed it. I don't need to know that
Wow.
because it could be 10 things that happen. It could be your 6-year-old. It could be, somebody else that helped you. So that is the pitch right there.
All right.
The Ethiopia, the blankets, that leading to a book talking about blankets. Those are the stories you want to tell on the podcast. And you could tell different parts of them on different podcasts. Some of them may focus more on your book. Well, how did you come up with blankets as your title, right? So that part where you're giving the idea and the illustration of the despair and at the point at which you were almost going to end your life, that's your pitch, because then you're going to say, and I would love to share my story of how I overcame that or how I moved past that or how I came out of it. You don't have to use any of the specifics. That's what you get to share when they're interviewing you.
All right.
All right. Okay. Cindy, Connie, do either of you want to go again or are you good?
I think I'm fine. I think I
Okay.
learned all the things that I needed to learn, and I really appreciate all your feedback. And I
Absolutely.
appreciate meeting you girls and sending both of you love, and you as well, Julie. Thank you for what you do.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Well, I will email all of you. Maybe not tonight. I have to go to my nephew's gate fair tonight. Um, I'm a very proud auntie. But by tomorrow, you'll get an email with the full recording. So if you want to listen to any of it, any of the feedback, you can listen to it again. And then I will edit it and I will send you your individual clips. What I typically do is I put them in a Google folder and then give you access to it. That way you can download it, you can edit it, you can do all sorts of things. You can put the full video clip on social media if you want. You could also, which is also a great thing to think about as just another version of it, is you can take the audio and just put the audio over a static image or a picture of you. You don't even have to use the video part of it. So just so you guys know, you have both options, which it's always fun to play with that. And I like doing it in different ways. I put it as a short on my YouTube channel. I sometimes share it as reels on Instagram or Facebook. But it can also just be for you to watch and practice and try again and just, get better at your pitch or how you want to, share yourself with others. And I will also send in the email. I know some of you have come, but another great place to find hosts that might be looking for guests like you are my Women's Podcaster Party networking events. So I do those every month at the end of the month. One is a full hour of networking where you guys all get to introduce yourself and meet each other. And then the second one, there is some networking, but there's also a featured speaker. And in February, I am speaking myself, which because I realized I haven't spoken in that group in a long time. I'm going to be sharing my top tips at how to be a good interviewee as well as how to be a good interviewer. We're going to talk about it from both the host and the guest perspective. So even if you can't come live, if you register, again, you'll get the recording of those events too. All right, we're almost out of time anyway. Good timing. Well, I want to thank each of you for being here and putting yourself out there to practice your pitch and to hear feedback. And I just appreciate all of you so much. And I hope to see you online again very soon.
Thank you so much, Julie.
Bye.
Bye,
Have a
girls.
great
Nice
day.
meeting you.